day, class! There have been a lot of firsts in this series. First video game, first arcade game. I feel like we should tackle another first. Today we'll be discussing the very first home video game console. Engineer Ralph Baer spent his time in the 1950s as a military contractor focusing on electrical engineering. The monitors he used inspired him to come up with something that could hook up to a television that would be interactive, rather than just tuning into television stations. Through the 1960s, Baer built many prototypes to implement his ideas for interactions with your television sets, the most famous of which being his brown box. In 1969, he pitched the idea of and demonstrated a ping pong game on the brown box to the electronics company Magnavox. Magnavox went through with redesigning the brown box into the Magnavox Odyssey, and it was ready to be sold by 1972. The Magnavox Odyssey was the very first video game console ever made, but with that prestige of being first, there were a lot of things that didn't really get tested in terms of marketing this product to a consumer or in terms of preserving it. To put it shortly, there are a lot of conditions that need to be met in order to effectively play this console today. For starters, the console would connect to your TV via a game cord that has this odd end to it. That end would plug into a switcher box that would screw onto the back of the TV and connect to your console and your cable wire, so you could easily switch between playing games and watching your nightly shows. However, some of these switcher boxes are hard to find, and even if I had one, a TV from the 70s and 80s with the ability to have the box screwed into is even harder to find. I happen to have an older TV that would work, except for another obstacle that comes with this console, the game overlays. The Magnavox Odyssey didn't have graphics like you've come to know and love about video games today, so it would use these overlays to give you a better idea of what the game you're playing should look like. The reason this is an issue for this TV is that they have specific sizes. Your TV either needs to be 18 to 21 inches for the small overlays or 23 to 25 inches for the big overlays. Even if you happen to have a TV with those specifications that is modern, you can't use that either because it must be a CRT TV. You know that static that comes off of the CRT? That's what holds the overlay in place on the screen. Using a CRT TV from the 90s and early 2000s is easier to find, but what about the switcher box? Well, you're going to have to modify the game cable. If you cut off one end and strip the plastic back, you'll find the copper that allows the video signal to travel from the console to the TV. What you need to do is solder that copper to an RCA adapter, and then connect that RCA adapter to a coax adapter. Connect that coax adapter to the coax input on the back of your TV, and you are finally in business. As long as the picture comes up. There's a good chance that the picture will be visible, but very screwed up, even though everything is connected correctly, and there's a way to fix it that requires getting inside the guts of the Odyssey. If you open it up, you'll find a couple of little discs that can control the vertical and horizontal frequency of the video signal. Just adjust them until the picture comes up is the best advice that I can give. Now that everything has been adjusted and things are set up correctly, it's time to play the Odyssey. Except, well, there's just one more problem. All the games are two-player. I have a feeling this problem will be just a little easier to fix. Can I get a volunteer for the class, please? Yes, you! You'll do fine, come on. What's your name, son?
Logan.
Nice to meet you, Logan. Are you ready to play some Magnavox Odyssey?
Well, I came up here, didn't I?
Shut up and come on.
So I know that the overlays are the graphics, but where are the games?
Oh, well, the games are these little numbered cards right here. Each card corresponds to a different game that operates the Odyssey in a different way. Here, let's pop in card number 1. This is the basic Odyssey game, Table Tennis.
Wait. Isn't this just Pong?
Nope. In fact, this is the game that inspired Pong, but we'll get to that in a later video.
So, what's the difference?
Classic Pong only allows for vertical movement, which you could do with this knob. But on the Odyssey, you can also move horizontally. Unlike Pong that will hit the ball at a different angle depending on what part of the paddle is hit, all the curving on the ball is done using the English control.
So, what's this reset button for?
The reset button? That's to serve the ball. Essentially, this game was made to get you used to the Odyssey controls, so there's no real reason to keep score. But if you want to, keep it in your head or a piece of paper because it won't keep score for you.
So this seems pretty basic, but when do the overlays come in?
Well, this is actually the only game that doesn't require an overlay, but let's move on to card 2 and check out some of the games on there. Card 2 changes the programming to where there's no ball, so we just move our characters around on the screen.
How is two squares moving around the screen with no ball supposed to be fun?
With the overlays, of course. The first one we've got is a skiing game. In this game, you move your character through the different slopes from the starting line to the finish line, all while trying to stay within the dotted lines at all times. There are two different ways to play each trail with two players. You can score your run on points, losing points whenever you light a gate, touch a tree, or hit a mountain, or a timed run where you add time for hitting those same obstacles, or getting disqualified for hitting the mountain. The game cards don't have to be switched out for every single game either. Game Card 2 also lets us play Simon Says.
Oh, I think I'm getting it now. Simon Says, go off the screen.
Well, hold on, Logan. That's not quite how you play this version of the game. We need the Simon Says card deck. We each alternate drawing a card on the count of 3. We race to that area on the overlay, and whoever ends up with the most cards at the end of the deck is the winner.
That's not very much like Simon Says. Wouldn't we need someone to say where to go and one of us lose because they didn't say Simon Says?
Well, you're absolutely right. We do need a third person. Would anyone else from the class like to join us? What, seriously? No one? Okay, well, you know what? Logan's getting extra credit for this.
Nice.
Well, I guess we should move on to game card number 3 and play a little bit of tennis.
Didn't we already play table tennis though? What's the difference?
Well, it starts with the game card. As you can see, there isn't a line in the middle this time. The overlay is meant to simulate an actual tennis court, so we have to play by the actual tennis rules. We have to serve from one corner to the other for a serve to count. We can't let the ball go out of bounds, and we keep score in terms of 15, 30, 40 in game. First player to win 6 games wins a set, and first to win 2 sets wins the match. There's also hockey on game card 3. To play this one, we start at the center of the ice and do a face-off.
Sweet! That's 1 point for me.
Oh, not exactly. You see, with hockey, we have to be on our opponent's side of the ice to be able to make the shot. If the puck goes off of the screen above the goal, we face off here, and below the goal, we face off here. From here, I'm able to try to score by using the English control to curve the puck. It can go straight in, or it can go off the board by going off the bottom or top of the screen and curving into the goal. You are allowed to try to defend, but if you go into your own goal, that's a foul. When that happens, you're only allowed to use one hand on your controller for the next 2 plays. Speaking of plays, the game consists of 3 periods, and each period consists of 20 plays.
Does this thing have any games that aren't sports related?
Absolutely. The Odyssey was designed as a total play and learning experience for all ages. So how about we learn a little bit of math in a game called Analogic? This game will test your mental wit as we try to traverse space. Me going from planet even to odd, you from planet odd to even.
Seems simple enough.
Not in the slightest. You see, I'll start moving to number 8, since it's even. You'd now have to add my number with the number you choose to move to make an odd number. When it's my turn again, I add the number you move to the number I need to move to make an even number.
That's just simple math. I don't see the issue here.
Well, the issue happens whenever it's time for us to find each other's planets. Until we're within 3 columns of each other, we need to transmit a signal to know where to go. That is accomplished by bouncing the ball as a signal back and forth. Also, if you miss your opponent with a signal, you have to go back a space. And your opponent gets a red chip, which allows them to move diagonally.
Okay, wow. This got really complicated really fast.
I told you it was going to test your wit. We could even complicate it more by adding in an extra rule. If the light bounces back and forth 4 times before you make your move, you lose your turn. Not so hard when we're far away, but once we get close, that light is going to start bouncing fast. But whenever we do get to the middle, the light goes away for the remainder of the game, and passing through the planets gives you an extra diagonal move.
Well, at least it can't get more complicated than this, and it's not sports.
Oh, you are about to be disappointed, because we're about to play football, and football requires not only game card 3, but 4, a bunch. Like, seriously, Logan, I mean a bunch of these game card decks and a Game Boy.
Pardon my French, Professor, but omelette du fromage.
That's the appropriate reaction, honestly. Game Card 3 is for passing and kicking plays, while Game Card 4 is for running plays. You can tell a tackle happens with Game Card 4 because one of the players disappears if the players touch. We flip a coin to see who chooses whether to kick or receive first. If the receiver misses the ball, it's considered a touchback and the game starts on the 20-yard line. If the receiver catches the ball, then they get to run it back. But first, the kicker must draw a kicker card to determine the yardage, plus roll the dice to figure out how much further back the ball went off the kick due to wind. This all determines what yardage the ball is actually caught at, and then we have to calculate the run back. The receiver will roll the dice and from there figure out how many yards they were able to carry the ball. If they roll a number that corresponds to an X, that's considered a breakaway run, with the receiver rolling the dice again and then multiplying that number by 5 to find the yardage. All changes in yardage is shown with these markers on the game board, showing where the ball is and where the first down line is.
My brain hurts.
We haven't even gotten to the plays yet. With our play cards, the offense puts one card face down corresponding to a running play or passing play or a punt. The defense will do the same to try to counter the offense. We then flip our cards over, and if the defense picks the same card as the offense, then the defense has the chance to make the offense suffer a penalty. But let's explain how the plays work first. The running play has the offense in the line of scrimmage and the defense a block away. Until the offense says hike, both players should not have their hand on the horizontal movement button. Either keep it on the table or on your head. If the offensive player gets around the defensive player, it is a successful running play. When that happens, the offense will take a card from the run deck that will determine how many yards you move up. The place in which your character is on the screen after getting past the defense determines what number on the card is your yard increase. If a breakaway card is drawn, the offense rolls the dice and multiplies that number by 5 to determine yardage. Going out of bounds results in a 5-yard penalty, and touching the other player means the defense got the tackle. If the defense did not pick up the running card before the play happened, then it's just a down. But if they did pick the running card, the offense then takes a penalty. Defense will roll the dice and find the corresponding number that either sends the offense back some yards, or rolling the number that corresponds to X results in a fumble with the defense recovering the ball. The passing play starts with the offense in the line of scrimmage, the ball is thrown using the reset button, and the defense can only move vertically to block the pass. If the pass successfully goes past the defense, a card is drawn from the pass deck, which will give you the increase in yards. If a bomb card is drawn, it has the same effect as a breakaway card for running. If the ball bounces off the defense and the correct card wasn't picked, it's an incomplete pass. If the correct card was picked, the penalty is paid by rolling the dice with an X, resulting in an interception. There's also the punt, which plays the same way as a passing play. If the punt goes past the receiver, there is no run back, and the kicker will pick a card from the punt deck to determine yardage. Then, of course, the dice are rolled to calculate wind. If the punt is caught, the receiver rolls the dice and reads the results in the punt run back row with an X, resulting in a breakaway. It's also possible to go for a field goal at any point within 60 yards of the goal you were going to. Just roll the dice and read whether or not your field goal made it depending on how far back you are. A plus is a successful field goal, and a 0 is an unsuccessful field goal with the opposition taking over at the 20. There are also 5-yard penalties for passing the line of scrimmage before the ball is hiked, or attempting a play with the wrong game card in. The game consists of 4 quarters, 20 plays each, and in the last 4 plays of each quarter, you can go for a bomb maneuver. A passing play is implemented with a successful attempt, resulting in a dice roll times 5 to determine yardage, and an unsuccessful play results in an interception and a breakaway run by the opposition that results in a dice roll 5 times over!
I will pay you my tuition 5 times over if we can go to another game, please!
Okay, how about something a little simpler to understand? Let's play some cat and mouse.
Yes.
The left player starts on the cat's head as the cat, and the right player starts as the mouse. The mouse is trying to get around the cat to get to the bottom right corner. Neither player is allowed to touch the blue squares. They're supposed to be furniture. There are some stickers we can put on the overlay, but truthfully, I don't want to ruin the stickers. Each block would correspond to the number on a sticker across and down, with the sum being the score the mouse gets when they are eventually caught by the cat. If the mouse makes it all the way to the corner, that's 30 points. Each player gets 3 tries at being the mouse, and we can also play a variant of this with every odd numbered block not counting for any points at all.
This is definitely a lot better than football. Are there any other games this simple?
Well, that's sort of a complicated question to answer. Some of them are simple, some are not. But how about we just move on to our next one, Haunted House. One player starts off as the detective, and the other player is the ghost. At the beginning, the ghost will look through the deck of clue cards and go hide in one of the clues. They'll disappear by taking the detective's controller and running into the ghost, making them disappear. The detective is then returned to the front door. The ghost is helping the detective find all the clues by calling out the next clue the detective needs to go to. You can tell you found the clue when it illuminates on the overlay. If you go to the wrong clue, you skip any clues that you missed by doing that, and if you illuminate any windows, you lose the last clue you found. Once the detective gets the clue right before the ghost hits the reset button, pops out and yells, "Boo!" Yes. Boo. The detective then needs to maneuver around the ghost without touching them. If they do touch the ghost, they lose half the clues they've collected. Once the detective gets to the note on the 3rd floor, they draw a secret message card that either takes a clue away from them, gives them a clue, or sends them back to another clue location to traverse the haunted house from there again. At the end of the house, the detective finds the treasure, and the amount of clues they ended up with is tallied.
At least this is less complicated than football, but I'm kind of missing the action of the sports games. Is there any other more actiony games?
Yeah, in fact, how about we play a shoot 'em up game? Let's pop in game cartridge 5. And play submarine. The programming is changed on this one to make one of the players disappear when they are hit by a ball, or in this case, torpedo. One player stays on the left side firing torpedoes while the other player navigates the path. Each time the right player is hit, they hit the reset button and keep going along the path. The amount of ships sank by the time the ship gets to the end of the path determines the submarine's player's points for the round.
Who would have thought I would enjoy shooting my professor so much?
I'm flattered. Anyway, this is the only game that's on card 5, so let's move on to card 6 and gamble with a game of roulette. Probably not best to tell the board range about this game, okay?
Okay.
We are going to need a couple peripherals, like we're going to need this board, this board, whew. And we're going to need some chips, and some cash. You ready to gamble?
Here you go.
Nice. Alright, let's get to the game. The programming is altered by this card by allowing the light to be randomized. Essentially, we bet with chips on where the light will land and put those chips on the game board betting on red, black, a certain number, a row of numbers, evens, odds, etc. The reset button is held down while the horizontal and vertical knobs are moved around, scrambling the memory. The reset button is then released, and the light then moves onto the screen on its own, finding its place on the roulette, determining whether or not we made money back on our bets.
We aren't using real money though, are we?
No, of course not. That would be absurd. Why would we use real money, Logan? Of course we aren't.
Right.
Now, let's finish up our education on the Odyssey with a good old education game, States. We randomize the light the same way as with roulette and try to identify what the state is that the light landed on. The states cards help us determine whether or not we were right. If you are right, you get to keep the card. If you land on a state that's already been taken, you can challenge for that state by answering one of the questions related to that state on the state card. All this can be found in this handy-dandy Affairs of States booklet. If the light lands on one of the Great Lakes and the correct lake is named, that player gets a free state card that cannot be challenged for. First player to get either 15, 25, or 35 states wins.
You know, I didn't really expect to learn this much from video games, especially the first video game console. I mean, we learned about sports, geography, and even math. You know, they really hit the nail on the head when they said this was both a play and learning experience.
Just exactly. You know, people are always dogging on educational games, but they fail to realize that the entire first generation of video games was pretty much about educating people. There is so much we can learn from video games, and there's always more to learn. So you know what, Logan? It was great having you in class today. And the rest of the class, I hope to see you guys next time when we tackle more right here on VG 101. Is it crooked? I thought I was left-handed. All right.